No one wins divorce. That's the reality. And there you go, I've said it. That's a solicitor who has a divorce department within his practice telling you that divorces aren't won and lost. Now, why I say that is because I think the approach that people have about winning and losing when it comes to divorce is the wrong approach. It is something that may well be in people's minds, but it's not the way you should look at a divorce. Divorce is not a competition. It is a process by which lawyers and courts, or you can do it by yourself, go through to divide up assets. And ultimately, the court will have consideration to everyone's needs, and whether or not you want to achieve something or your ex-husband or ex-wife wants to achieve something, what people want is obviously going to be relevant to the arguments in a divorce, but what people's needs are what it boils down to in the end. Now, my view and the purpose of this vlog is to give you some guidance on how I think you should approach divorce and how to look at it as opposed to winning or losing. Now, first and foremost, you need to be constructive, and you need to look at it effectively as an economic or a business negotiation. What do you want to achieve at the end? What do you need? What are your red lines? What are those things that you can't give up? Now, those are going to be different for you and your husband, or you and your wife, because your needs will be different. One may have a greater degree of income, one might have a greater degree of savings. All of that will be disclosed, all of that will be shared with each other, and then an assessment will be made on how best to split those assets. Common myths about the wife gets more is just not a fact. It's just a fact in our society, historically, less so now, but historically and typically, men tend to be the main breadwinners in the home, which means they end up feeling like, I say feeling like paying more than the women in a relationship. But that is not how divorce is considered. That's not how it's approached. It's approached on people's needs and how best to divide two households into one. Now, advice is key. Advice is key throughout. Now, I appreciate that divorce advice can be expensive, and instructing solicitors and barristers, whatever's needed, can be expensive. But use advice constructively. I would advise you speak to a solicitor early, get some initial guidance, initial thoughts on what's involved in divorce. You know, none of us plan to get divorced. None of us stand at the altar and say, actually, this is good for a few years. So go and educate yourself, learn, get some information from a solicitor. It might be that you then go away and think on that information, think on your options, do your own research, see what mortgages you can raise, what your income position is, whether you can change jobs. But you need to look at that constructively and look at what you can do to improve your position. When I say take advice as well, take advice from a solicitor. Now, you will find, if you're going through a divorce, you will get lots of advice from friends and people who care for you. Now, that advice is important, that support is important, and please lean on those people that are important to you and love you and care for you. But I urge you not to take legal advice from Dave or Brenda in the pub, or Derek or Julie in the barber shop or the hairdressing salon, because they're not lawyers, unless of course they are, but they're not lawyers generally speaking, and they will tell you what their friend did or what happened in their divorce. The reality is every divorce is different, every couple is different, every marriage is different, everyone's assets and financial position is different. So what happens in someone else's divorce may not be relevant at all to your divorce. And whilst take support and guidance from friends, make sure that they're supportive. And I would personally recommend you avoid taking advice from those people who are saying things like, oh, take them for all they're worth, you know, get everything out you can. You know, that sort of advice is not constructive. Look at constructive results. Now, the next step I would recommend you do after you take some initial advice from a solicitor is get into mediation. If you're in a position where you can mediate remotely over video or in a mediation centre, then that will iron out a lot of the disagreements between you and your ex. That will then mean when you go back to a solicitor to finalise your divorce, that would be the plan, then you have narrowed the arguments down to maybe 1 or 2 issues that need to be finalised, which is going to reduce your legal bill massively, absolutely massively. Now, a couple of things very quickly I want to cover about the family home. In most cases, the family home is in the pot in a divorce, almost all cases. It could be in joint names or sole names. The reality is the whole value of the property is going to go into the pot for consideration. But when what is decided about what's going to happen with the family home, there are many options. Is it sold with the money divided? Does one part of the marriage, one husband or one wife, buy out the other half of the marriage? Is there consideration for children living in the house? Do the children need a roof over their head? What ability do the husband and wife have to buy another property? Do they have savings? Do they have enough income to raise a mortgage? All of this will turn on the individual facts of your individual case. Another thing I want to cover very briefly is children. Now, children, in my view, should never be used as a weapon in divorce or in any other form of separation. We often see people who are arguing about child contact and trying to resolve it. Once again, mediation is key here. If you can get yourselves in front of a mediator who can negotiate or assist you to negotiate settling some form of agreed contact with you and your children and shared care. The court will be reluctant to make an order over contact because the first duty of the court, is the making sure the welfare of the children is of paramount importance. In other words, children come first, and their welfare should be met. And the court will always see that children's welfare is best met by being raised by both parents, if it's safe for that to happen. But the second issue, and one of the things the court knows, they will not issue a court order unless it's absolutely necessary. So you could find yourself going through court arguing over child contact, and the judge may say, well, you appear to make some agreement, I'm not going to make a court order. And the court does that because they don't want to have a court order being waved around between parents, because it adds fuel to the fire that's already there. But try to negotiate an agreement, stick to it, and try to find some flexibility where needed. But if you can't agree, that mediation is the best way forward. Once again, we can assist you with that. But that's a brief summary of some of the issues around divorce. There are many other factors that come into every divorce, whether it's pensions or savings or possible inheritances or business assets. But these are all factors that go into each individual case. But every case turns on its facts, because no 2 divorces are the same. But those are my views on divorce. I will be hosting a Q&A session this Thursday at 6 p.m. here on Facebook Live. Thank you.